Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this morning. Our webinar today is using the College and Career Knowledge Assessment for students in the 21 through 2022 school year. We are going to go ahead and get started with some introductions. We're going to do a quick webinar this morning, under 30 minutes. We are recording. We will share this with everyone that is participating, and we will cover all of the information. We will also make sure that you get the recording through email, and we will follow up on all the information that we have. And we will close out by 10:30. So thank you for introducing yourselves and putting your role and your name in the chat. If we have any issues with the slides, we will correct those and then send them out. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Laura Guggen, and I'm Director of Program Implementation at Texas OnCourse. We have a team of a couple of people that are joining the webinar this morning. I'm just going to kind of quickly go over the folks on my team. Kathy Zarati runs the Senior Fellows Coordinator program. So we have district fellowships in 20 different regions across the state of Texas. And so the program implementation team, basically we're the folks that connect with all of the school districts across Texas. We actually have a couple of other out-of-state partners as well. But we work with everyone that's implementing district curriculum as well as programs. So Kathy is joining us today, as well as Lisa Shaw, who's our implementation coordinator. Lisa has a CTE background, and she works with folks that are using our middle school curriculum, which is connected to the assessment that we are going to talk about this morning. So Kathy and Lisa, did you all just want to say hello, and then I'll turn it over to Matt?
Sure. Hi, good morning. I'm Kathy. I'm the Senior Fellows Coordinator, and yeah, excited to share this information with y'all today.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Glad you guys are here, and glad we could get this information out to you.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, Lisa. And then we have another, we'll call you a guest speaker this morning, Matt. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about a little bit about your role with the assessment, go right ahead.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Gianni. I'm the Director of Research and Data Science for the Office of Strategy and Policy and an Assistant Professor of Practice at UT Austin. I've been a longtime collaborator with Texas OnCourse back when they were at UT Austin, and I and an organization called WestEd helped develop the College and Career Knowledge Assessment for students that we'll hear about today.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Matt. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is our webinar agenda this morning. We wanted to make this really user-friendly. We had almost 300 people register for this webinar. We know we have a lot of folks that use the College and Career Knowledge Assessment for students in their middle schools primarily. So this is the first webinar we're doing on this topic, where we wanted to talk a little bit about the assessment, but also make it really, really like easy to understand. So we kind of took this like who, what, where, and why approach. We also created a document for you, so everyone will get access to an implementation guide for educators that is on the College and Career Knowledge Assessment. So we created that resource, and we're able to we just finalized it, and we're going to share it with you this morning. So basically all of the things that we cover on the assessment, we have put into an implementation guide for educators. So we have that. We've created some additional things for you as well if you want to use the assessment. So also in today's webinar, we're just going to talk about what the assessment is and why we use it, why we created it. And then we'll cover who should take it, and there's some flexibility in terms of who can take the assessment and what you'd like to do depending on the needs of your campus. We'll also talk about who administers the assessment. We recognize that campuses and districts are really, really different in the way that they look, the resources that you have, all of the tools that you have, and what you might want to use this for, and how it connects to our curriculum. We have a couple of different timelines that we'll talk about in terms of when the assessment should be given, because there's some flexibility there, but we also have some windows of time that we want to share with you in terms of like when you have access to the assessment, when you have access to the reports that we produce, and things like that. We'll also talk about where you can find the assessment links and info. We hope that many of you have already used the Texas OnCourse Academy, where we have free online professional development. That management system is through Canvas. So we've created some things this morning for you to be able to access. And then we are also going to talk a little bit about what we've learned from it. So we don't always get a chance to share some of like the data and the results, because, we give you what, your students are doing and what's relevant to you. But we'll talk a little bit about kind of what we've learned so far and what we've learned from it, what things might change in the future. And we will keep it under 30 minutes. So without further ado, we'll kind of move forward here and cover all of these points. So first of all, we have a college and career knowledge assessment for students. That is our assessment. And we made an implementation guide for educators. So I'm actually going to show you a couple of things from that guide, and then we will probably refer to this document throughout the webinar itself, and also give you a link to that. So a couple of things that we've put in, everything we cover in today's webinar, we've kind of pulled from that guide, meaning the objectives, all of the information on the reports, it's all in one place for you. And so we talk a little bit about how this assessment connects with the college and career readiness curriculum that Texas OnCourse has created. So I know many of you are very familiar with that curriculum. It's very easy to download from texasoncourse.org. And the curriculum obviously includes lesson plans that are aligned to the TEKS. We've talked a lot about our curriculum, and we know a lot of people are using it across the state. So we have a lot of middle schools that are teaching courses on college and career readiness, and also investigating careers. So this is kind of like a sample of some just things that we know, like programs that we know use our curriculum, CTE programs and CTE courses, college readiness courses. You might be a recipient of Gear Up grant funds, and you might be teaching curriculum using Gear Up facilitators and through your Gear Up grant. And also we connect really closely with AVID programs and AVID classes. I've seen a lot of people even just join today's webinar that are CCMR coordinators or directors of CCMR, CCR teachers. I see El Paso. It's great to see all of you. I see TRIO college access programs. Fantastic. So Kathy went ahead, thank you so much, Kathy, and went ahead and shared the guide, and it is in the chat for you. And I can also show you a few things in there as well. So we'll talk a little bit about what the assessment is and why we use it, and kind of go back and forth. And some of you may have used the assessment before, and some of you may be new to it. So we just want to kind of quickly go over the objectives, and these are in the guide as well. So, these are kind of the main, like the high overarching goals of the assessment. We want to measure students' readiness, not only for college, because we hear and talk a lot about college readiness, but also readiness for high school, and also career growth over time. So this, and I think Matt will also talk a little bit about the high school transitions knowledge, but we just there's been a lot of discussion around starting CCMR objectives and curriculum at the earlier grades, and that's really the focus of the assessment. So when we talk about high school transitions knowledge and being ready for high school, that's really what we're referring to. Understanding those endorsements, understanding the graduation plans, starting to learn about that vocabulary, for post-secondary planning in the middle school grades. So the assessment was created with that in mind to measure students' readiness for not only college and career, but also for high school. The second objective is really to align future instruction and your programs that you're offering, and that can encompass a lot at your campus. But what are your students' most critical needs, and how can you educate them and implement the curriculum that's necessary, also while meeting state instructional mandates? In other webinars and in other areas, we talk a lot about all of the different instructional mandates. One of them is House Bill 18, that was from several years ago, but that's really around implementing college and career instruction in 7th and 8th grade. So that House Bill 18 was from several years ago, but that's part of how the curriculum was created and how the assessment was created as well. And then also to assess the effectiveness of middle school, college, and career instruction using the curriculum. So it's kind of helps share like why you have the curriculum, who needs to know about it, and is it effective by using the assessment. A couple things about the assessment itself. We get a lot of just general questions, but if a student is taking the assessment, they're going to take 20 to 25 multiple choice knowledge-based questions. And it will include several sets of questions so that the students in the same classroom are really unlikely to receive the same set. Matt will talk a little bit more about the question setup, but so you won't get all of your students won't get the same 25 questions. And then really the goal is for the students to take what we call it the CCKA, the College and Career Knowledge Assessment, before your instruction and then after your instruction to measure growth. So here's just a couple of sample questions. And in the guide, we actually offer more sample questions for you to review. But we talk a little bit about which type of degree you can earn at community colleges. So we talked about some of that vocabulary around post-secondary like degree attainment. And then also what's an industry-based certification. So this is kind of starting those conversations in middle school. If you've got programs of study in your school and you're starting maybe course registration. So we talk about those credentials, what those credentials mean. These are just really 2 sample questions that we have from the assessment. And like I said, in the guide itself, we have additional questions for you to see. And the questions and the content is really divided up into 3 different subdomains. And like I said, we're talking about that high school knowledge or high school transitions knowledge, college knowledge, and then also career knowledge. So you'll see in these boxes, we talk a little bit about financial aid and financial aid literacy. You saw the question on career and technical education and industry-based certifications. Earning college credit in high school as an example. Career choices, graduation plans we mentioned. We have a lot of folks that are using, getting ready for those high school personal graduation plans, maybe in 8th grade. And you're talking about those 5 endorsements. So these are some of the subdomains that we talk about and some of the topics. Matt, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the performance levels in the assessment.
Sure, thanks. So once the assessment's administered, we analyze the data and calculate student scores. Many of you might be familiar with standardized assessments that get converted into a scaled score. This is like the SAT or end of course exams. In our case, the scaled score is called an adjusted % correct, which can essentially be interpreted as what percentage of the items did students get correct, adjusted somewhat for the difficulty of the items that they saw, since students see different items. And we went through a really extensive process with a panel of experts from across the state to determine what are the different performance levels that can help us provide meaning and understanding to students' actual scores. So you see here, there's 3 score ranges that we've called the emerging level, the demonstrating level, and the excelling level that represent the range of knowledge about college and career that students can indicate. So the emerging category is if students get under 39% correct on the assessment. Demonstrating is between 39% and 64%. And if students get 65% or above, we would consider them excelling in their knowledge of college and career topics. And below you see some text that essentially differentiates those different performance levels. And the next slide shows a bit more detail about what we call the performance level descriptors. So under each one of those performance levels, there are a set of descriptors that really clearly indicate what should students know if they're in each of these different performance levels. So as one example, students in the emerging level would have a general understanding of some relationships between career clusters, education, and careers. When they're in the demonstrating level, they would have more fine-grained understanding of things like the career clusters and level of education associated with them, as well as individual programs of study that comprise a career cluster. And in the excelling level, they might know more about, let's say, industry-based certifications, which are kind of a higher level of understanding. So this is one example of how a topic gets increasingly difficult across the different performance levels. So what college and career topics are covered? This has been discussed a bit before, but once again, the standards we drew from are the Investigating Careers and College and Career Readiness TEKS, as well as the standards in House Bill 18. And below is just a list of many of the topics that are covered by the assessment, once again, in the 3 areas of high school knowledge, college knowledge, and career knowledge. And when students take the assessment, the next slide shows that in addition to the actual assessment of college and career knowledge, we also ask students some questions to measure some other constructs, such as their educational aspirations and expectations, their career decision-making self-efficacy. So this is basically how confident are students in making decisions about college and career, their growth mindset, their civic engagement, and college and career knowledge is once again from the assessment. All of these constructs are very much aligned to the curriculum itself. So for example, the curriculum talks about how students can use their career to make a positive impact in their community. And that's why the civic engagement construct measures the extent to which students really feel like they can make a difference and they can contribute to their community in positive ways. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to the team to talk about the next steps.
Thank you, Matt. So Lisa's going to talk a little bit about who takes the assessment and who administers it.
Hi, thanks, Matt. That was a really great explanation. So who takes the assessment? So this is our college and career knowledge assessment for students. So once a school has identified where college and career curriculum is being delivered, those students would need to take the college and career knowledge assessment. And that should be all middle school students. It's just kind of identifying where. So if you have a standalone class for the college and career curriculum, like through a college readiness course or investigating careers, you might have students take it during that course. Some of your campuses are going to have some students in a college readiness course, as well as some students in an AVID course. It's okay to have the CCKA given to students in an AVID course. So wherever your college and career curriculum is being delivered, those are the students that need to take that. So some of this might be at in a semester course. So maybe 7th graders in the fall semester, you would give the pre-test at the beginning of the fall semester and then the post-test at the end. Now, if it's a year-long course, of course, you would give that pre-test at the beginning of instruction and then again at the end of instruction near the end of the school year. So all of your middle school students getting college and career curriculum information are who needs to take that college and career knowledge assessment. So high school students can also take this assessment. How great is it to know when you have incoming freshmen how much college and career knowledge they already have? So it's really nice to know what you're working with and how you can best support those students once they have a college and career knowledge assessment beginning their school year. So all middle school students, wherever they're receiving curriculum. And then if you want to assess your high school students, that would be great too. So when we administer the assessment, if you have a teacher in a standalone class, that's the easiest place to administer it. It only takes 20 to 30 minutes. So we wanted to make sure that this would fit easily within a standard class period, whether they're on a standard schedule or on block. So the pre and the post, each of them are only going to take 20 to 30 minutes. And then a teacher can give the assessment, a counselor, an administrator, any of those can give this assessment. And when you download it, you'll complete an implementation survey. And then just make sure whenever the first set of students takes it, so I'm going to use the 7th grade example again, if they're doing a fall semester long course, that same group of students will need to take the post assessment, right? Because that's how we'll measure growth from when a student comes in with no formal instruction on college and career readiness. Then they'll receive the instruction over the course of that semester or year-long course, depending. And then once instruction has ended, they'll take the post test for the CCKA so that they have, you can see how those students, that group of students has grown in their knowledge acquisition. So when should the assessment be given? We already kind of mentioned that just a little bit at the very beginning before instruction begins, and then at the end when instruction is completed. Making a plan, of course, right? That's how we plan for success. So identify which students will take the CCKA. So if we're looking at middle school, you'll identify where each of your students is getting their college and career curriculum, whether it's through an AVID class or a standalone class using our curriculum, or if our curriculum is being delivered through advisory or another course. Identify where all of those students will take the CCKA. And again, middle school, that should be all of them. Implementation survey, so that only takes about 10 minutes. So whoever is delivering instruction or the CCKA, if they're separate teachers, to give that, it's about a 10-minute survey for implementation. Doesn't take very long, and that gives us information on if you're doing a semester-long course, a year-long course, if it's standalone, if it's with another college preparatory course. Gives us good information on that. And then once you complete that implementation survey, that's where you will get your links for the pre-test and for the post-test.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. We're going to turn it over to Kathy, who's going to talk to us a little bit about where you can find everything.
Yeah, so Lisa mentioned that once you do the implementation survey, that the pre and post assessment links will be emailed to you. There's also another place you can find them. And so, yeah, if you go to the next slide. So we recently relaunched the Texas OnCourse Academy, which is our online professional development platform. And within the Academy, we've created a course called Implementing the CCKA for Students. And so, yeah, you can go to the next slide. That's just what the homepage looks like. And this course is an easy way for you to find the information on the assessment, including the topics we discussed today. You'll find links to the implementation survey and both the pre and post assessment links. You'll also be able to download the educator implementation guide we've shared with you today, and you'll be able to access this webinar recording and any other resources we have for the assessment. So this is kind of your one-stop shop for all things for the college and career knowledge assessment for students. And in order to access this, you have to be registered in the academy, and you must be enrolled in the course. So what we're going to do is we have 2 ways to be enrolled in the course. The first is we'll register you. Anyone who registered for this webinar will be enrolled in the course. And then you can also request enrollment when you complete the implementation survey. We've added a question to the survey where you can input the email address you use to log into the Texas OnCourse Academy. And everything will be there. So yeah, so thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. I want to make sure, and we will have some time. If we have not gotten to a question that you asked, we have some time at the end for questions. So we're going to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit about what we've learned so far.
Sure. Thanks again. And let me first just preface this by saying we have learned quite a bit over the past 2 years, but we also know the past 2 years have been exceptional and not in a good way. So many of the findings I'll show are kind of colored by the fact that students were receiving remote instruction, schools were closed for periods of times, and so forth. So we're very much looking forward to this upcoming year in the future to really continue to measure students' development of college and career understanding over time. So the first slide shows one of the great things, which is that we've had lots of students take the assessment. In fact, I think we're at about 30 to 40,000 students over the past couple of years who have taken it. Although one unfortunate thing is that far more students take the pre-assessment than the post-assessment. And in fact, many students take one or the other. Many students also take the post-assessment having never taken the pre-assessment, which essentially prevents us from measuring individual student growth. And that's one of the reasons we strongly encourage schools and districts to administer both the pre-assessment and the post-assessment so we can actually measure students' growth over time. So the next slide shows some results on how students' knowledge of college and career changes by these different performance levels of emerging, demonstrating, and excelling. And this is for all students, regardless of if they took both the pre-assessment and the post-assessment. What you can see is that students are moving from the demonstrating level to the excelling level, which provides evidence that students at the higher end of college and career knowledge are increasing their understanding over time. But one cause for concern is that the proportion of students in the emerging level actually increased a bit over the past year, which is not necessarily what we would want to see. We would want to see that percentage of students in the emerging level decline. And although the picture is a little bit different on the next slide, this is specifically for students who took a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, and we can match the results together. The picture is a little different, but once again, we see a lot of students that are in the emerging level and are not moving to the demonstrating and excelling categories, unfortunately. Although we also do see a proportion of students who are in demonstrating at the beginning of the year, and they're moving to excelling at the end of the year. So that's some positive news about students at the higher end of college and career knowledge, but still there's lots of students that don't have that basic level even of college and career understanding that really underscores the importance of all of the work you're doing and the instruction to middle school students in college and career. Finally, I'll just mention briefly that we want to learn from all of you in terms of what you're doing to really provide this instruction to students. And what we see on the next slide is quite a bit of variation across schools and districts in terms of change or growth in student scores from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So each one of these bars is a different school, and the number is the change in student scores from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We're not disclosing any of the names of schools. We're not calling anyone out either way, but we do see quite a bit of variation. And what we're doing from a research perspective is working with the schools where we're seeing really exceptional growth and trying to understand what types of curriculum are being used, what instructional practices, are the courses mandatory or elective, what other resources are being used in the classroom to support this instruction, what types of professional development are educators receiving that helps them provide this instruction. So we're learning from all of you. And once again, to ensure that all students have the knowledge that they need to make informed decisions about college and career. I'll close with just a few other key findings, which are that, first of all, we definitely see that students gain transitions knowledge as they progress through grades. We haven't had as many high school students take the assessment as middle school students, which is why we definitely encourage schools and districts to administer the assessment to high school students, so we can continue to examine how students' college and career understanding develops as they progress from middle school into high school. As the previous slide showed, we also see considerable variation across schools, and we're trying to learn more about why that is. And the final point is that, unfortunately, we do see racial and socioeconomic inequalities in high school transitions knowledge. And that, I think, really underscores the importance of this work in terms of promoting equity in students' outcomes and ensuring all students, regardless of their demographic background, the school or district they're from, their zip code, they understand college and career topics in order to make informed decisions. So finally, I'll just mention that we encourage everyone to administer the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, which allows us to measure that change or growth in students' understanding. And if you have at least 30 students who take the pre-assessment and the post-assessment, that's all we need to measure that growth over time. And our team is able to provide reports to your school or district that summarizes that growth with figures similar to what you just saw a moment ago.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt and Kathy and Lisa. I know we reserved 30 minutes. We got through all of the information that we wanted to share with you. If you do have a question and if you'd like to go ahead, I think we'd maybe take a couple of more minutes if y'all can stay on. And if you have a question, you can feel free to ask it in the chat. And we will once again also send this out to you in a recording and send you the links as well. So let me check our questions here. I think we talked a little bit about Sherry's question around CTE, and I will go back to the chat. One of the things we were also curious about is like how could the assessment be helpful to you in your role if you have other things or other ideas that maybe we haven't covered and you're still here with us. If you want to share some of those, we would also love to hear, and feel free to add any questions before we close out.
So Laura, it looks like we had a question. They said, just to clarify, each teacher in the district needs to complete a survey in order to participate, and that the links will become active on August 17th. And then they can request scores once campuses have completed testing. So I think that's a great question, just to add clarity for everybody.
Sure. Matt, did you see some of that information in there? Yes, the links will be active. To clarify, Julie, the links will be active and we will send those out. They'll also be in the Canvas course. And then,
yes.
and then we will produce the reports that align with the timeline.
And each teacher does need to complete the survey.
Thanks, Lisa.
On each campus and each district. Perfect.
And Brenda, yes, I think this was not to everyone, but the assessment will help identify areas you need to go over with your students to help prep them for high school and beyond. Absolutely, that's one of the objectives of the assessment. And we just need the implementation survey link. So I'm going to go grab that link and pop it in here before we close out.
Thanks for posting the implementation survey, Kathy. And let's
just
see.
to clarify, there's a question. So students have to register for OnCourse on Texas OnCourse. That is not correct.
Right.
So
they do not have to register.
No. So we're just asking for anyone implementing the survey who wants to be in that Canvas course it's only for educators. The Texas OnCourse Academy is just for educators, and in that implementing the CCKA for students course is where we'll provide all the links and everything that you need to give the actual assessment to your students.
And we will also, if you had a colleague that registered for this webinar, but maybe couldn't join, we will keep this list and make sure everyone has access to the information. And when we send out any links, that everyone here will get that. Perfect. Well, we want to be really conscientious of your time. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We will be in touch. You can email us directly and get all of our information from the Texas OnCourse website. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again.
Thanks everybody for being here today. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.